So this is a quick intro into the idea of using an aux input track for your effects, specifically for reverb. And reverb is that sound, when you walk into a big gymnasium and you bounce the basketball, you hear this reverberant. It's not an echo as in a repeated sound, but just the sound of a big hall or a big room. And it is something that helps to kind of glue our productions together and is on everything that we ever listen to. So to begin with, we have our drums that are separated. So I'm just going to go through here and make sure of one thing. Bright plate here, this is reverb that's built into our sound. So I want to turn all this stuff off. All right, I don't want any reverb on expand to be coming through. I'm assuming that overheads is as well. All right, so now we have completely dry drums. All right, I'm going to click on, so I'm in my mix window because it's just easier to visualize here. I'm going to click on my lead because I'm going to make a new track and it's going to come to the right of my lead. And I kind of like to organize my auxes to the right of everything if they're going to be available to everything, or just to the right of a group of tracks that I'm going to send to it. So I'm going to go up to track and make a new track. I'm going to make it stereo, and instead of audio track, I'm going to choose aux input track. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one reverb because that's what we're going to put on it. There's a couple of steps that we need to do. I've soloed these things so we can just hear the drums and just hear the reverb. We need to identify this part of our channel strip, which is the I/O section. The I stands for input and the O stands for output. This top slot is the input slot and the output slot is the bottom one. These are going to our main outs. Everything's going to the same place. We're going to click on no input and we're going to choose a bus. And we're going to choose the first available bus that we have. Mine is 1 and 2. It should be for all of us, but sometimes there are some weird things that happen in the lab. In the insert, we're going to insert a multi-channel plugin effect called, from the reverb category, called Deverb. It is a stock reverb plugin. We'll talk more about it at some point, but you have different types of environments that you can kind of choose from. The hall is fine. The biggest parameter to consider is the decay. How long is this reverb going to hold out for? And I'll adjust that in a bit. There are things like pre-delay, like if you were to yell in a gym, how long would it take for your voice to hit the wall? And you may actually hear a bit of a slap back, things of that nature. There's a high frequency cut and things, but we'll leave it like that. And we'll leave it 100% wet. I'm going to hide this for the moment. All right, so this is actually set up and ready to go. And what we need to do is we need to send or get the signal from each of these tracks and more, but specifically right now, each of these tracks over to our reverb. And we do that on bus 1 and 2. I want you to imagine that we're going to connect an imaginary virtual cable between each of these tracks and the input of our aux input track. And we do that in the sends section. So on my snare drum, I'll use as an example, I'm going to go to bus. I'm going to choose bus 1 and 2 so these two things are now connected. And now this floating fader popped up. And this fader now represents how much of this snare drum am I sending to the reverb. And let me just focus on that snare. Okay, very dry. Here comes the reverb. All right, that's a lot. I don't really like that much reverb on my snare drum. And it's a little bit long. There's kind of many rules of thumb, but one is that your reverb should probably end before the next snare drum hit. think pretty much there. Still too much, in my opinion. Okay, and it's hard to tell without the whole thing going, but I tend to put, so we do need to go ahead and put buses on all of our, and then we'll bring those back, on all of the tracks that we're going to send. And I like to always say that we are going to send many, many sounds, if not all of our sounds, to this reverb. The reverb makes it seem like the band is in the same room together. That's always the goal, or the same, concert hall venue. I do tend to put less of the kick in. That's the clap, doesn't happen that often. Okay, dry, reverb. And we can adjust the overall reverb if we feel that it's too much. Okay, definitely going to put some guitar in there. Let's see what it sounds like with the guitar. Okay. You can hear that tail when I press stop. I'm just listening to how long it is. All right, we got some guitar in there. The pad would probably send, I don't tend to send much bass, if at all, to reverb, but I'll put a little bit. So we're really sending the majority of our sounds to the reverb. I'll definitely send that lead because I'm still not satisfied with it, but the more wet it is, the wetter it is, perhaps the better overall it's going to sound. Oh, that's a different sound. Anyways. All right, so that's basically how you use an aux input track with a reverb.